So we're going to start today's session with a land acknowledgement. It is so important here at Royal Roads University that we acknowledge the traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Esquimalt and Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here where past, present, future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. So today's session, it's a really casual interview. It's kind of more of like a coffee chat. I have my coffee cup filled up here. And we are going to be recording today's session so that just in case anybody has to pop out early or wasn't able to attend today, we have it recorded for you. Because it's casual, we'd love for people to ask questions throughout. I have some questions prepared for Kyle, but we'd love it if you ask questions so you can pop them right into the chat just to make sure everybody knows where the chat is. If you want to pop in there, where in the world you're joining us from, and what's your beverage of choice in your mug in the morning or the afternoon. I have coffee, but just pop it in the chat. We'd love to know. And you can also use the reactions feature too. So you can find that on Zoom. You can test it out. You can give us a thumbs up. If Kyle says something that's very entertaining, you can do the laugh cry emoji face, whatever you'd like. It's, like I said, just a conversation. And today's session, we have Kyle Ingram from PAL Aerospace in St. John, Newfoundland and Labrador joining us. And we also have Ross Porter, who is the BCom program head. Behind the scenes, we have Selena, who's here to support with any tech. So if you have any questions, you can send her a direct message to Selena. We also have Tracy here, who is an enrollment advisor. So if you have any questions that are specific to the program, she's here to help. Wonderful. Oh, and I should introduce myself. My name is Emara Angus, and I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads University. All right, are we ready to jump right in? Give me a thumbs up reaction if we're ready to jump into the interview.
How about a physical thumbs up?
Physical works too. Awesome. Thumbs up. Good. I see some thumbs up coming in. Great. Okay. So the first question actually, Kyle, is how are you doing today?
Oh, you know what? It is a busy Wednesday before a holiday. It is Wednesday, I believe. Sometimes I get the days mixed up, but it's before a holiday. So it's one of those typical 4-day work weeks where there's just not enough hours in the day and it's just all too busy. But then you realize that when you don't finish things on Friday, that it'll just carry on to next week, which is also just fine. So I'm coming to accept that.
Awesome. And just a quick check-in, Ross, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And welcome, everybody.
Awesome. All right, let's jump in. Kyle, tell us a bit more about yourself, please.
Right on. So I'm former RRU BCom graduate, currently a project manager working at PAL Aerospace on the East Coast of Canada. Also a former helicopter pilot and consultant, and I think those are most things that I've done. And yeah, so my role right now working in aerospace, which I didn't know about aerospace, much before getting into this role, was that we do, high-end, I guess, modifications on, military and private aircraft. So, if somebody wants to take an aircraft and do a specialized government mission for it, then we are the people who outfit those cameras, sensors, everything, increase gross weight, increase capabilities, new seating configurations, stuff like that. So we design and customize aircrafts. That's my role. I run those programs and projects here at PAL in St. John's.
That's really cool. So I guess my next question is, what made you go back to school for a degree? Like, what were you doing beforehand? Did you have any other training? Like, what made you go back to school for a degree?
Yeah. I was a helicopter pilot from being very young. Out of high school and a few years after that, and not like I guess a formal Air Canada pilot that you're in a city or working back and forth. Like I was a bush pilot, so a lot of time spent in the very remote parts of Canada, throughout the Arctic and Newfoundland, Labrador, northern British Columbia, and the territories. And I saw myself kind of hitting, I don't want to say like a ceiling. I guess I saw more of my trajectory in the people who were in roles in that industry. And they were people who were highly technically competent, but didn't necessarily have the management traits or skills to really add value to the organization. So you see that all the time in every industry. What I'm coming to see is that somebody is really good at programming or really good at whatever. And so then they're like, oh, well, if they're good at programming, they must be a good manager. And you promote somebody based on that merit, and they're a terrible manager, not to their fault. They have no training, they have no background, they have no context, just like, well, good luck managing 30 people and meeting financial deadlines. So I saw that, and I was frustrated pushing up against that with managers who had no managerial experience. And I knew that I wouldn't always want to be the person on the ground level. I like thinking strategically. I like big picture thinking and being a part of that conversation. So I sought to, I guess, educate myself. And initially I wanted to go back into that field, into VFR helicopter aviation. And then, yeah, just, life progressed, a new interest grabbed me, and here we are.
So you decided to go back to school, and how did you decide Royal Roads was the school and BCom was the program for you?
Yeah, so I guess how did I come to Royal Roads? I think, to be honest, I might have just been biking past one day and I thought that looks really interesting. But then I'd done that to many schools before as well, so it wasn't just happenstance. Like I looked at schools for years, and I think that the tipping point was that there was a really unique program offered through Royal Roads, like a really engaging crowd right off the get-go, and it seemed, yeah, it just seemed to really be a really good fit. And I guess and to be honest, like I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, as a BCom in entrepreneurial management. The entrepreneurial aspect, while it's very interesting, didn't mean a lot to me at the time. But then it was said to me, that the term intrapreneur, which really resonated with me. I think it was this idea of, being an entrepreneurially minded, so problem solving focused within an organization. And that still resonates with me. I think that's a huge value add in what I do right now. So that narrative around what the program offered and what I would be trained, and the kind of holistic training, that was provided through Royal Roads, with, a bit in finance and strategy and leadership and everything. It's very well rounded and prepared me very well for managing programs in larger aerospace industry, because I touch on, cost models and people managing and, leadership and, being strategic and working with clients. And, it's everything. Like, it's a project manager is, you are the mini CEO for, your own project within a company. So I'm running little businesses within this larger organization. So I didn't really realize that, way back in the day, but it's kind of just been the evolution of where I am now. And it's been really cool. So that really, I guess, resonated with me when I first started looking into Royal Roads, which is how I ended up here.
Okay, so you ended up at Royal Roads. You decided to be in the program, you joined the program. What was it like? What was your experience like in the BCom program?
Yeah, it was excellent. I mean, like, there was let's see, there was it's, again, huge diversity of content. And I think, I was really, I don't want to say stressed, but I was very cautious going in, because I'd never done formal secondary education. So I was a high school graduate with a pilot's license. So it's a lot of, there's a lot of recurrent training with being a pilot, but not exactly a formalized 4-year degree, like some of my relatives or friends had gone through. I had friends in engineering and friends who were going into medicine, and very intensive. I saw their struggles, and I was, back of my head, I'm like, ooh, like, can I do this? I wasn't sure. Like, I was very stressed out. And I think that was my first experience with Royal Roads, was just kind of really wondering if I could do this. And then once you kind of get into it and you realize that it's more about process and applying yourself. It's, you can get in, you can start learning the content and spending the time and treating it like a job. So I show up every day ready to learn and apply yourself and learn the content. And I found that Royal Roads, the both the school and the faculty and the other students, my peers, like, they give so much back. So it was such an awesome experience, kind of starting out with Royal Roads. Stressful at first and very intimidating, but it was, yeah, just an excellent experience.
So you said your peers and your cohort. I'd love to know a bit more about your peers and cohort. Were they pilots too? Like, where did they come from?
No, I mean, oh my God, people came from everywhere. Yeah, all different countries and all different, I guess, backgrounds. We had people in HR. We had people with, oh my God, in manufacturing, people from the military, people from, I can't even list anywhere else, which was cool. And it really added to the experience as well. there was people there, because when you get into a room and you learn this new idea, the teachers or faculty or whoever is there will provide you with an idea, and then you deliberate that idea and you kind of pick it apart, which is really cool to have that be picked apart by so many different people. And that really kind of helped reiterate the learning for me. And I think I realized part of my own learning style when I was at Royal Roads is that to be there and deliberating these contents and ideas really help with my knowledge retention. And whether that's virtual or whether that's in person or whether that's wherever, it's nice to just be a part of that. Be a part of that mindset and just have the exposure to new ideas and see that being picked apart different ways. So I think that was huge diversity in both ideas and people throughout the program.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another question in a moment, but I'm also going to welcome people in the room to pop questions in the chat. If there's any that are coming up that you'd like the answer to, pop them in the chat and I can ask Kyle those questions. So the next question I have for you is, what was the best part of the program for you? And what was the least best part?
The least best part. I think the best part, let's go with the least best part first. I think the least best part was that intimidation at first. It was like, can I do this? And then I think when I first started, it took me a bit to get into the swing of things, and not necessarily because I was worried I wouldn't be smart enough, or I was worried I wouldn't, have what it takes. And then once you get into it and you realize that it's just like anything else, just like learning a skill or a trade, or in the military, training, it's about exposing yourself and trying to, just understanding it, from the ground up. And then, there's understanding the testing process. I guess those are things that I wasn't practiced in going in, but after the first few tests, after the first, course or two, I really got in the swing of it. And I think it was really intimidating getting through that, but that was a scary time for me, because I took time off work, of course, to do this. And, it was a big commitment. But then once I got through that entered into the best part, which was, seeing myself developing these skills and being able to, really apply them to different areas. So and I see that, even in the work that I do right now, and just being able to focus and critically think, and those are kind of skills that I still place a very high value on. And I need to keep practicing them, otherwise I do lose them. So even if I don't go back and really utilize the skills of critical thinking or picking apart puzzles, I find I lose that. So I was at a peak in Royal Roads, and I definitely gained that skill set and got that, and then it kind of faded out. And when I did some other things after university, and since I've been back in this role, it's been very, getting back into the swing of, critical thinking and focus. But I have that framework from where I developed at Royal Roads, which is I'm just so grateful for. So it's been really cool.
Thank you for sharing the best part and the least best part. So this is a question I love to ask people, because I feel like it really gives a lot of insight. What's your favorite career advice that somebody's given to you that you'd like to share with the room today? Yeah.
And I had to pull that apart. And I think that career advice for me was less about, the actual job, and more about the life decision to go there. It was more about how will you feel about yourself and about the decisions, and what do you really want? What's the underlying driver for that, than actually just what do you do in a job? Do you always work hard? That never really resonated with me. So I actually had to write this one out. So it was the recommendation was, so throughout life, you have to continually ask yourself 4 questions, and you must be able to answer at least 3 of them. Yes, otherwise you need to reevaluate your path. So the first one is, am I making a decent living? Am I learning anything new? Am I having fun? And am I living a balanced life? So whenever I've come to a crossroads of multiple different paths, is it school? Is it work? Is it multiple career paths? When I left Royal Roads, I had a couple different career paths I could go on. And I looked at those 4 questions and I thought, which one is going to allow me to say yes to at least 3 of those, and maybe even the 4th one, and that would help guide me on my way. So I think that I use that still, just with anything that I do, is it allowing me to kind of capture and pursue those 4 questions.
I like that. I'm going to jot those down later, and I'm going to have them on my wall and check in every Monday. Is this the right
It's
Yeah,
really good.
I
I
think the
recommend.
best career advice that I've received that I kind of listened to that somebody gave me a few years ago is keep following the best opportunities. So whenever you're at that
Mm,
crossroads, just keep following the best opportunity, the opportunity that feels like it fits best with you, and you'll get to where you want to go and where you need to be.
I like that. I really like that. Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing your four check-in questions.
Yeah.
So I have a question actually that came in the chat. So was being a BCom graduate helpful in transitioning from one professional world to another? And they kind of clarified and saying, did having the BCom degree open new professional doors for you?
Yes, absolutely. And so now I had to go through this exercise twice actually. So I did it. So when I was a pilot, I wanted to get out of being a pilot and go into being a manager. So I left being a pilot, went to business school, and then when I entered back into the workforce, I was a pilot and I think it was a manager, project manager, something like that. So it definitely helped transition me minorly in that regard into a new area. But then I guess more extensively, when I left kind of VFR helicopters altogether, just in this last year and a half, I had really had to utilize skills at Royal Roads to help transfer everything that I learned from being a pilot and going totally into a different area, which is aerospace. So I guess they seem very similar, but you're going from being in a cockpit flying an aircraft to building an aircraft, which is almost it's there's a lot of similar terms, but it's a very different industry, a lot of new areas. So then I had to take and leverage a lot of my railroads experience, utilize a lot of the skills that I learned at Royal Roads to kind of help catapult me into kind of this next phase. So I think yes, absolutely. Like Royal Roads gave me the tools to help kind of analyze where I was and then communicate where I wanted to be. And I think that's present from an emotional perspective, from a technical perspective. I can talk about technical finance pieces or strategic pieces, and I can connect with people and ideas on an emotional level, which is all very important and all highly valued in every field, especially when you get into being a manager and working with people.
So the next question I had prepared for you that I'm going to tweak a little bit because you've kind of covered off some of it right now is what impact do you think BCom program had on your life and your career? And you talked a lot about the impact it had on your career and your day-to-day working, but what about your life? Like what kind of impact did it have on your life, like your relationships with family and people? Like what kind of impact did it have?
Yeah, I think that people have a tendency to pull apart, work and life as being two very, very, or no, it's not work and life. Work and personal life as two very distinct things. But for me, like it's much the same. Like you develop a skill set to critically think or to focus, and I can pull that through, and I can, I use that in my personal life every day. I use it for whether I have a side hustle and I'm consulting, whether it's through, doing another training program online while I'm working, whether it's through buying a house or whatnot. So I use these skills of, focusing and, I guess so many other things that I develop at Royal Roads every day. And I find that I really value that trait in other people as well. So, it's really nice to help even have, fireside discussions like this. You can dig into certain topics, you can focus on certain things, you can analyze problems, you can read the news and not just think what people want you to tell or what people want you to hear, but you can analyze that and be like, I believe certain parts of this. It gives you the mental tools, I think, it's which is really, I guess that's been the biggest gift, and I guess also the gift that employers like to see as well, as somebody who is critical and analytical, but can also, I guess, utilize that information effectively. So that plays a part of my on my personal life, I think, quite a bit.
That's great. And yeah, critical thinking skills are very, very valuable and very important.
Yeah.
They need to be
Yeah.
honed and developed for sure. So we have some people in the room and people who are watching this later that are considering going back to school for the BCom program or a degree of some sort. Do you have any advice for them for how you did it, how to juggle work, school, life? Sounds like you're continuing to do professional development. So how do you juggle all of that?
Yeah, I was really lucky when I went to the BCom program that I didn't have to work. So I did a little bit towards the end just because I had some career opportunities pop up that was utilizing my new skills. So I thought, let's try to do it. And I think it was nice because it pushes you to time manage yourself a bit more. Like, yes, maybe you have to work a little bit after 4:30 p.m. Maybe you need to work on a Saturday every once in a while. But I mean, to me, it didn't really seem to make as much of a negative impact because I was doing something that I loved. So I guess, how did I balance it? I guess it didn't really seem like I had to balance it because I was living and doing the things that I felt really passionately about. So I didn't have to have that separation. I wasn't like, oh, I need to clock out so I can start doing something that I enjoy. It's like, oh, I really enjoyed the learning. I really enjoyed the people I was with. I really enjoyed, the work I was doing at the time. And yeah, it was good. And to your point about, having to balance a job and continuous learning. And that is something that I'm doing now as well. Always trying to pick up a course, whether it's free content from an education provider, or just doing reading on a certain topic that happened to be prevalent at work at the time being. Like, I'm always running into challenges at work where it's like, oh, I'm not an expert in this, but neither is anybody else, so I need to figure this out because this is a burning problem right now. So sometimes it's just about that. I think that for me, it was about making the things that you don't want to do, because there's always gonna be things you don't want to do. So making those things that you don't want to do enjoyable. So for example, if I had to study for a finance exam that I really wasn't looking forward to, or if I had to get into the technical details of a whatever at work, I guess I'd make it enjoyable. I'd make that process enjoyable. So I'd try to find, let's go to my favorite coffee shop and go grab coffee, and I'll work on a Saturday morning for half an hour or an hour and get it out of the way. And I guess it's just, figuring out ways to time manage that effectively and making it be enjoyable as the process as possible. Because that's when you're really engaged. That's I shouldn't say when everybody is. That's when I'm engaged, when I'm enjoying myself, and when I'm actually want to learn the content. I'm relaxed and I can focus intently on it, and that's when I retain it the best. So I think, time management piece is huge. I think it's about kind of structuring your life accordingly and prioritizing things, and also making it sure that you can be relaxed and enjoy the situation and enjoy the experience, so that you actually retain all the learning. I think that's a big one. Looks like Ross is about to ask a question.
I was going to make a comment, but I'll frame it as a question.
Okay.
So kind of building off what you just said in terms of your orientation or the mindset you brought to your education, advice for things that attitudinally or mindset wise that enabled you to maximize the value that you've received out of the program versus maybe approaches that you saw other people take that maybe didn't allow them to excel and benefit from the journey that you took.
Yeah, I think it was about, kind of leaning into the whole experience. And I think it was about, I guess there's a vulnerability piece to that as well. I think it's about saying, this is good. There's going to be new ideas. There's going to be uncomfortable ideas. There's going to be people with different opinions. There's going to be new scenarios, and there's going to be change. I think all of which, as we know, it's change is really hard, and new ideas and new concepts are hard. But that's, I guess, once you can wrap your head around the fact that change is good, and change, like it's exciting what's happening. I think that once you lean in and once you are able to kind of accept that, then I think that's when a lot of the value starts to come. And that's how I think I was successful throughout the BCom. I don't recall, like, I don't think anybody was really like anti that, in like any of my peers were really like, oh, they were not open to change at all ever. Because when you go to school, you're saying you want change, so there needs to be an open part. But I think that people's success were largely derived from how much they leaned in and how much they gave to the program. So if you show up 20 minutes late for class, just like if you show up 20 minutes late for work, like people aren't going to be a big fan of you. And if you don't do your homework, if you don't do your reading, if you aren't prepared to do your job, if you aren't prepared to go to school in that regard, then you're not going to get as much out of it. And that's I guess that's the student or the worker's responsibility. So I guess that's a big way that I got so much out of the program and that was a huge piece that was recommended to me from the former CEO, whose company I left to go to school. He said, go do it, treat it like a job, like it's, come in, be, 10 minutes early for work, leave 10 minutes after work's done. Don't be the guy who's, skipping school if you don't need to. Don't be the guy who's skipping work if you don't need to. Commit to it, because you get more out of it by showing up than by not, and ultimately you're paying to be there. So I think that's a huge way that of how I showed up and how I got so much out of the program, and all of my peers as well. Like everybody had rave reviews for the program.
And I just say that attitudinal disposition that you came in with and allowed yourself to be guided by, I think is also what enabled your success and how you've been able to build on the foundation that was laid by the program.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, and and the learning doesn't stop at Royal Roads too. Like I think that I see it as building blocks, and it's been great. So I've continued to take the tools given to me by Royal Roads and keep building onto that. So after I left Royal Roads, I went and I did my project management certification, and I'm looking at doing the next step now, and it's great. And I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that I've been doing without taking that first step at Royal Roads. That was my first step from being, no post-secondary education, no formal education other than flight school, and then taking that into being like, okay, so I'm essentially leaving a trade, because that's what being a bush pilot was like. It's essentially a trade, and going into formal education. And that was a big step for me. But now that I've made that step, and Royal Roads was great at, providing support resources and doing that once I was making that transition, and while you're in there to kind of guide your training, and then huge, like I find I'm very well prepared. I've got the Swiss Army knife in my pocket now, and we just keep building upon that, and I'm continuing to build upon that now. So
great.
I can see a question down there.
Yeah, Dave, what's next in your career? Mm-hmm.
Dave, what's next in my career? Oh man, that is the perfect question. Good one, Dave. I guess I think I've been say flirting with an MBA for a while. Since I left Royal Roads, it's like, oh, that was so much fun. Like I want more of this. So I think I've been flirting with an MBA. I don't think I've found the platform, or I don't think I have enough, I don't want to say experience, but I think also different master's degrees really, really interest me. But also just continuing to go deeper into aerospace. Like I found that I didn't really know aerospace was a career even when I was a bush pilot. Like the fact that there are whole organizations that just build custom airplanes, it's a lot of military. So it's a lot of like it's not on the news, or not the news that I subscribe to. So now that I'm into this, I'm really interested in getting deeper into these kinds of projects, which means more in a line with, like, I've been looking at courses from MIT on systems engineering, which is really cool. Not to say I would go and do like another bachelor's degree, but there's many courses and even just like books I can read on that. So I guess formal learning isn't always the way that I go. I think Royal Road, I needed that formal learning to make that first step. But now that I have the tools, I find that I don't need to go to a formal program to get any value. Like I know how to structure myself. I know how to structure my learnings. I know how to get that kind of framework. So if I pick up a book, or if I pick up a textbook, or if I subscribe to a course, I can kind of cadence myself to go through the content. And I think that I think I'm on the edge, Dave. I think that I don't know if I should go MBA or if I should go more technical. I'm interested in so many things too. It's just my ADD is just like, I want to do everything. So I think maybe I'll do it all, but just not right away.
Well, Kyle, we do have an MBA webinar next month. So if you want to come to our webinar, you can join us, and we'll really unpack those questions for you and see if it's the right fit for you.
Definitely. Oh man, that'd be so much fun.
I want to thank everybody today for joining this session. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Ross. Thank you for everyone in the room. I've learned a lot. It's been very interesting hearing about your history and where you are today. We do have some more sessions coming up. Selena's going to pop it in the chat. We have another behind the scenes interview next month. And if you are wanting to dive into the BCom program, we do have a webinar as well next month. So we'll pop those links in the chat, and I'll follow up with an email with this recording. But thank you all so much. Do you have any final words, Kyle or Ross, that you want to share with the room?
For me, I think, I think that I want to go back to that intimidation. Like, people who are on this webinar are probably thinking about going back to school, very intimidated. It's a big change, leaving a job, trying to balance a job. I think that it was like, I look back, I don't know how many years ago it was, probably more than I care to admit, 5+ years ago. And it was, one of the best decisions I ever made. And it's addicting. It's so nice to be able to open your mind and be a part of such a great group of people and develop those skills. So I would say, if you're thinking about it, it can be nerve-wracking, but do it. It's so much fun and so rewarding.
The only thing I would add to that is follow your curiosity. If you're curious and knowing more, let that lead you. Follow up with us. And that's what learning is all about. It's being driven by curiosity to want to know more and to improve and to learn how to build, create, improve systems, processes, projects, and organizations. And if that is something that is interesting to you and you want to learn more, follow that.
Yeah,
That is
good
great
words.
advice. Thank you both so much for sharing that. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day, and stay in touch and reach out if you have any questions at all.